Alright, I just completed Clair Expedition 33. Now, to get a little background, the very first game I ever played was Phantasy Star on the Sega Master System, followed by Dragon Warrior, and then Final Fantasy on the SNES. So the first 3 games I played in my entire life were all turn-based JRPGs. And since then, I've probably played 90% of all turn-based JRPGs that have been released up to PlayStation 3 when they essentially abandoned the entire genre. The only really good game that came out in that time frame was Lost Odyssey on the Xbox 360. Everything else was pretty damn trash. With that in mind, the fact that this revived what Final Fantasy 11 through 15 should have been, this game is automatically a 10 out of 10 for me. And my rating system is always based on comparative games in the same time frame. So what turn-based JRPG that is in this fashion is better than this game? The most recent game that is superior to this, that's similar enough to be compared to this, is probably Dragon Quest XI. And I did enjoy Dragon Quest XI more than this. Now, there's some games like Metaphor ReFantasio, which is just different enough to not really be able to compare to this game. In Metaphor ReFantasio, you don't really have an open world like this to explore. It's more like set pieces, and you just go through the set pieces. Where this, you have an open world to explore, which even Final Fantasy X didn't have, right? This is going back all the way to like Final Fantasy IX days with the open world environments and, you know, all that jazz. So with that in mind, it gets it at a 10 out of 10. Now, another thing that really bad games do, like something like Sea of Stars, right? Sea of Stars is just Chrono Trigger, but lame. They took Chrono Trigger, and they're like, Chrono Trigger is one of the best JRPGs ever made. Let's just remake Chrono Trigger, call it something different, give it a cheesy story, and that's it, right? Now, this game took homage from a lot of other JRPGs, but they did it in an intelligent way where this game is still uniquely Clair Expedition. It is not a rip-off or just like a nostalgia bait like something like Sea of Stars or even Octopath Traveler a little bit. Octopath Traveler is a great game, but it is a little bit nostalgia bait. And you really can't compare it to this because this is using, you know, next generation graphics. It looks nice. It plays nice. But what are some of those things that they stole? Let's go to camp. Let's go to camp so we can just take, not stole, that they borrowed from some of the other games. This is almost like a turn-based, not even a turn-based. This is like a greatest hits of mechanics. So let's take a look over here. We're gonna see some familiar mechanics here. Let's upgrade some attributes. Right here, this is Dark Souls, right? They ripped this right out of Dark Souls. It's pretty nice. I like it a lot. I think it's a lot better than something that's just gonna automatically give you stats like Final Fantasy VII. This is a lot more akin to Dark Souls and or the Shin Megami Tensei series, right? You could compare it to either one, but it feels a little more Dark Souls than it does Shin Megami Tensei. But either way, you get to assign your own attributes, which is pretty dope. Now, if we want to learn some skills, where does this come from? We all know this is Dragon Quest XI, right? Actually, we all probably don't know that because you guys probably don't play nearly as many turn-based JRPGs as I do, but they took this right out of Dragon Quest XI, right? Great thing to clone it from. Great place to get your ideas from. And it's unique enough. And I just beat the game. I really like the ending because it took from one of my favorite narratives that has ever been created, which is Nier Automata. In the end of Nier Automata, you're about to get into some minor spoilers. I'm not going to say anything that's overly spoiler. I guess it is kind of pretty heavily spoiler. But 2 characters in this game have endings. One's a bad ending, one's a good ending. And at the end of the game, the 2 characters get to fight each other, and you get to pick which one you want to be, which ending you think is the correct ending. And there is a good ending, and there is a bad ending, despite what other people may say. There's definitely a good ending and a bad ending. But you get to fight one of your other characters, and you get to pick which ending you want. Very reminiscent to 9S versus A2 from Nier Automata. Great place to draw inspiration. And if you think this soundtrack doesn't draw inspiration off of Nier Automata, you're crazy. You're crazy. They drew inspiration out of all of the best games, and they made it their own. Really good. I give it a 10 out of 10 simply because there's nothing really on par to compare this with in the current age. But if I broaden the genre and I compare it to something like ReFantasio, Persona 5, Shinigami Tensei 5, Dragon Quest 11, Unicorn Overload, even though it's a tactics game. I like those all better than I ended up liking this one. And my only real complaint as a boomer turn-based JRPG player is in the accessibility options. So let's go into some of these settings. Whoa. We don't want that. This accessibility, the fact that they allowed me to disable the QuickTime events is the only reason I played this game. I am an adamant hater of QuickTime events. I think it is one of the worst game mechanics to ever have been introduced into gaming, with exception of rhythm games like Parappa, kick, punch, it's all in the mind. Those are the only things that should really have QuickTime events of all times. One of my favorite things to do, once every couple years, I think it's Heavy Rain. I think that's what the game calls, where they run through the event and they just deliberately missed all the QuickTime events and the event still happens. You don't fail. It's just like so dumb that it's like hit X now, and then you just like a monkey just follow the prompts. I hate it. I fucking hate it. And once I saw that it had QuickTime events, I was out, right? I didn't even look into this game. But then I saw, that the QuickTime events can be disabled, and that the counter, dodge, parry, and gradient counters are all timing based, not hit button when we tell you to hit button. Now, for like something like a jump where you have to jump over an attack, it tells you you're going to need to jump, but it doesn't tell you when you need to jump. The jump timing is still all on you. And that makes it tolerable. That makes it actually pretty good. I did enjoy learning the mechanics of a lot of battles and a lot of fights and mastering them and getting like 10 parries in a row. It feels pretty damn spectacular. That does make me nervous though, because I would prefer to turn that off completely. When I play a JRPG, it's almost like a vibe, right? I want to lean back. I want to play with one hand on the controller. I want to relax. I want to get into a battle. I want to execute my commands. Then want to grab some potato chips and eat them, or some candy, or take a swig of my soda. But in this game, every combat requires nearly full attention, because they're going to come at you like sons of bitches, and you better be ready for it. Now, for me, that's kind of a vibe kill, and it makes it feel a little bit different. Another reason I don't compare it to other games is because it has that kind of attention required combat, which Persona 5 and ReFantazio and Dragon Quest 11 and all the similar games of this genre do not have. They don't require nearly as much focus as this game requires. So it is very different in that regard. And it makes me nervous for what's going to come next. Obviously, it's a good thing because this is a turn-based game that's been a huge hit. So all of these other roach companies are going to try to copy and clone what they've done here, and they're going to just import the dodge, block, parry mechanics from Dark Souls into turn-based games and ruin their turn-based games because they're not going to get it right. What I am excited for is what this team does next, because when you play this game and you have a discerning eye, you can see the budget restraints, you can see the time restraints all over the game. I mean, the game was only a 25 to 30 hour experience if you're not going around doing extra content. And, after things like Persona 5's 100-hour experience, it seemed a bit short. And for whatever reason, I think the pacing felt a little off, probably because of how disjarring the combat was for me, because I had to pay so close attention as a boomer turn-based veteran. That's not the norm for me. But if in the accessibility options, if they allowed the ability to respec the game to be classic mode, I would honestly not really have any complaints with this game. And now what I mean by respec to classic mode, I was trying out all the difficulties, right? The hardest difficulty is the most fun and intense. So I was playing on hardest most of the time with QTE disabled. I will never use those QTEs for your attacks. Those are stupid. Hit X when it tells you to hit X. Nah, fuck you. You don't tell me what to do. I do what the fuck I want. Now, with those disabled and on hard difficulty, it was a lot of fun. But it would have been really cool if they had a classic mode that removed the gradient counters, the dodge, the parry, and it rebalanced the entire damage. It rebalanced the damage so it's expecting you to take every hit. So that way you can use things like shell and regen and heal a lot more. I didn't use any shell. I didn't use any protect. I didn't really use a lot of heal. Eventually I got revive with Yuna. Or whatever her name is. This fucking storm bitch right here. I got revive with her, so I spec'd her out pretty dope, like, right? My Loon. She does second chance, so when she dies, she auto revives. This bad boy, what does this one do? Oh, it gives her damage, low life. She has shield and faster than strong. She gets to act twice, and so she can just heal the fuck out of everyone. She has rebirth, so she can act 2 times. So she can resurrect someone with an item, and then she can resurrect someone with her spells, or she can pump up her other party members with items, giving them +3 AP points. Really strong little setup I made here. And for the stats, I made her tanky as fuck, right? So if we go to attributes, and this is the core of what makes a good JRPG, is being able to customize each one of your characters however you like. So I made her with high agility, high defense, high vitality, a little bit of luck, because you always got to have luck. And she was just unfucking killable. So she would stay alive the entire battle, and if anyone else failed, she'd be able to revive them and use items. So she was my go-to. She was my GOAT. She's the MVP of the game. You could see that with the experience points. So let's go back into it. Level 53. I mean, she's also 54, but you have to play her a few times when you don't have to play her. For the most part, Lune was my GOAT. She's my damage dealer. These two are my damage dealers, and she's my healer. I didn't use Monaco or Verso that much, mostly because they don't have tits. But anyways, the game's excellent. Very few complaints. The only one I really have was I would like. It's not even a complaint, right? It's not even a complaint. It would just be dope if there was a classic mode. I highly recommend the game. It had really good emotional beats, very solid entry, and I cannot wait for what this team does next. And I can definitely wait for whatever other Roach company is going to try to copy what they've done here and their bullshit that they're going to have. Because they're going to have some lame-ass bullshit with this fucking dodge parry mechanic stuff. It's going to turn in like heavy rain with the quick time events. And I really just don't want quick time events to return into gaming. That is my biggest concern, is how other companies are going to, try to clone this. But either way, it's going to be better. This is more attention to turn-based games, which, as I said, I've been playing my entire life. This is a solid entry. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's another player in the turn-based game. For a long time, turn-based games were narrowed and limited to like Vanillaware, Atlas, Sega has a few. And it's just very few games are good at doing turn-based. And we have another one on the docket, another company that released a banger. 10 out of 10. I love the experience, but I didn't love it enough to do all of the extra in-game content. I think I am done with the game. I'm not going to do the side content. I'm not going to go through New Game Plus. I don't enjoy memorizing combat patterns enough to like master this game, right? And it's not going to be that fun for me to just memorize all these mechanics or go through New Game Plus. I'm just not going to enjoy it that much, especially now that the narrative is done. The narrative is really good. This is like playing a book almost, and without the rest of the story, I'm not invested enough into all this side stuff. And it does look like there is a ton of side stuff. Now, if I was younger, if I was in my 20s again and I had more time and I didn't work like 10 hours a day, I would be all over this. Like back when I was in college and I had a lot more free time, oh my God, I would have loved this shit. You can just see all of this extra stuff, which is a little bit out of the new Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom, right? You got these floating platforms with enemies, and those floating platforms are also in Tears of the Kingdom. But I could tell there's a ton of side content. You got all these big boys over here just picking up shit. You got this fucking dragon in the distance. You got this fucking flying whale, whatever the hell that is. There's a lot packed into this game that's beyond the narrative. So if you do love the combat, which I like but not love, there's a lot there probably. I have to say probably because I haven't, done it. Can I land from this high? Oh, damn. I did not know you could land that high. And I think there's even an underwater mechanic, which I didn't even get, if I remember correctly. But anyways, 10 out of 10. Very much love the game. Excellent showing for a first time. I am dumbfounded. It deserves all the praise that it's gotten. Maybe even a little more than it's gotten. But I don't think it's going to age nearly as well as something like Final Fantasy VII. Their next IP, though, might be the big one. Because you could see as you play this game, a lot of budgetary restraints, maybe a little bit of time restraints, a lot of creativity restraints. It looks like they use like a lot of auto-generation or something like that to build the world design. It could just be that the way this is a painting and you're in a painting, they did it deliberately. But it just wasn't as compelling as, like, I don't know, like Final Fantasy VII. I remember because it had the backgrounds, the fixed backgrounds. Some of the scenes in Final Fantasy VII are just astounding when you first get there. Anyways. Excellent game. That's my take. Super excited for the future of turn-based games. I will check you later.